All right, so project COVID explanation. So I'm here to simplify our understanding of this COVID, the disease caused by this COVID, just so we know, like, instead of like knowing how many people are dying, like maybe it's good to also know like how do we get sick or why do we get sick because of this virus. Okay, so let me start by saying that we can get sick because of at least three main factors. So this is you, and you can get sick because of three things. Well, first of all, there can be changes in outside your environment that can damage your body cells. Like for example, too hot, extreme sunlight, or temperature gets too cold, or let's just say there's chemicals around you, you've been exposed to chemicals, you've been exposed to radiation, so that can make you sick. So you can also get sick just because it's in your genes. So you have different kinds of genetic diseases. So you can't really do anything about it because the gene codes for you to get sick. So your environment, or it could be your genes. Lastly, and most importantly, are pathogens. So pathogens are microorganisms or agents that can make you sick once they gain entry into your body. So in English, we call these pathogens germs. Yeah, germs are bad for you; they get you sick. And there are five kinds of pathogens. So you have your from largest to smallest. So you have your parasites, or you can think of them as worms. So if you ingest eggs of different kinds of worms, so that can make you sick. Fungi or your molds, and then your bacteria. Now we have a very good understanding about the disease process caused by the infection of bacteria. And then we have here right here prions and viruses. Now I have them boxed here because prions and viruses, they're not alive, they're non-living, they're not cellular, they don't have cells. So these two agents are basically molecules. So prions are proteins, protein molecules, and then viruses are protein molecules plus nucleic acids plus a little bit of carbohydrate molecules. So both of them are just molecules, but then they are pathogenic. They can get you sick. Okay, so a problem with that is because these are living organisms, we can easily target their metabolism and kill them. Okay, these two, because they're non-living, they don't have any metabolism. So how can we target? How can we kill them? Well, first of all, how can we kill them if they're not alive? They're just mere molecules. So that's why I have a disclaimer here, because we've been hearing, everywhere around us, they say like do this, do that because it will kill the virus, or social distancing because the virus looks for a host. So just a disclaimer: this is not cellular. It's non-living. It means it doesn't produce energy. It doesn't grow. Doesn't have different kinds of metabolism, just like your cell. So we can't kill something that's not alive. We can't say that it's looking for other victims to kill because again, it's not alive. It's just a molecule. A molecule. Okay. So instead of saying killing them, we can probably say destroying, breaking, or damaging. So we damage their structure so that they can't cause a disease. A little bit of background about viruses. There's many kinds of viruses, and there's also different ways to classify viruses. But just to simplify, they can have different shapes or structures. So you have those that have icosahedral structure, so they have like geometrical structures. Some of them even have tails, so a geometrical structure with protein tails. This looks like food processes, by the way. Then some of them are round, some of them are spiral or filamentous. And we are interested with this shape right here because our coronavirus takes a spherical shape. So I have here a very beautiful drawing of a coronavirus. And this virus, again, it's not alive, it's made of molecules. It's made up of nucleic acid. So inside you have the RNA. And RNA are nucleic acids, so acidic molecules. And it's made up of a protein membrane. So this is protein. And it will have spikes, this one. These are also proteins. And in between you have glycoproteins. Okay, so proteins, glycoproteins, proteins, and then nucleic acids. Molecules, molecules, molecules. Okay, and where does these viruses come from? So in virology, you will learn that there are different theories on how these viruses evolved. Where did they come from? Where did they come from? Well, just to simplify the theory, one theory says because they can easily gain access to a host cell, it's possible that these viruses are fragments of a host cell. So they are actually part of an actual cell before. That's why right now, when they have access to the cell, the cell can easily engulf them because the cell knows, oh, this is mine, this is part of me. Another theory says that it's possible that before the first cell, molecules in the early universe started to form this virus. Okay, this virus eventually became more complex to have your cell. So the theory says this preceded the first cell. Okay? And then the other theory said this is actually part of the cell. And then it kind of wanted to have its own life, so it went out of the cell and tried to jump around different cells. Okay? So it's really a theory, like where did these viruses come from? What we know is they're here and they've been causing diseases. All right.
All right, so maybe you're familiar with your airway. So what I have here is a structure of your trachea, and it divides into the left and the right. So you have your right lung, left lung. And if you zoom in these terminal branches of your bronchioles, you will have this. So this is the terminal end of your bronchioles, okay? And this is called an alveolar sac. It's made up of little compartments called alveolus. If you zoom in one of those circles, actually if you zoom in two of those circles, you're going to see something like this, okay? Your alveolus. Now, your alveolus, you have to know that your alveolus here is wrapped around a dense network of blood vessels. Okay, there's a lot of blood vessels around your alveoli. Why? Well, common sense. You need your lungs for gas exchange. And CO2 is actually in your blood. So it needs to be exchanged between the blood. This is your blood vessel. This is a capillary. This is your alveolus. So there's gas exchange, oxygen from the environment will move into your capillaries. And then the waste products of your cellular metabolism, which is CO2, goes into your alveolus. And then you can exhale it out. Okay?
Your airway. So your alveolus is wrapped with a lot of blood vessels there, so that there's a constant exchange of gases, CO2 and O2, between your alveoli and then your capillaries, your blood. Okay, so what's so special with this alveoli? As you can see here, like these are not random sketches. Okay, if you look at the innermost lining of your alveoli, you're going to see three cells. You have your type 2 pneumocytes, so that's the bigger ones. This one, this one, this one. And then you have the smaller cells that are more flat. You have your type 1 pneumocytes, so this one, this one. And then you have your macrophages. So macrophages are like white blood cells. They scavenge the area of your alveoli, so they can move in and out from your blood and into your alveoli. They always check the endothelium here. They always check your alveolus for pathogens. Okay, so that the pathogens right here can be already killed. They can kill it here before the pathogen gains entry or moves into your blood. So three cells, type 2 pneumocytes, type 1 pneumocytes, and then your macrophages. These are special types of white blood cells. Now, my students already know that type 2 pneumocytes, this one, the larger cell, produces a surfactant. So what is that? It's kind of like similar to soap. So they produce soap so that although this is a moist lining, imagine if this is watery around your alveoli, water will not stick to each other and collapse your alveoli. So it produces a surfactant to prevent your alveolus from collapsing on itself. Okay, so that's good, right? Thank you, type 2 pneumocytes. Type 1 pneumocytes, the flatter one, they facilitate gas exchange. So that's where the gases actually move to and fro from the alveolus to the blood vessel. Okay, so type 2 produces surfactant. Type 1 facilitates gas exchange. And then these macrophages, they're just here. They're ready to engulf any pathogen that might be able to enter your alveoli. So the question is, how does COVID make you sick? Now, we have theories about it, and it's not yet clearly established. But when we look at clinical findings, we come up with some sort of a conclusion how it results or how it leads to a disease. We've also looked at the pathology of the MERS-CoV and the SARS viral disease to understand more about how COVID works, because the symptoms and the clinical findings seems to be very similar. Well, they're from the same family of viruses. So what we want to look at are the cells here in your alveoli. So apparently these viruses can damage any one of these cells. So it can damage the type 2 pneumocytes. That's a problem because you can produce surfactant. It can damage your type 1 pneumocytes. That's a problem again because you need your type 1 pneumocytes for gas exchange. It can damage your macrophages. Another big problem because you need that to protect you. So any of those cells can be damaged by your COVIDs. What research has been showing is that it may have been damaging type 2 pneumocytes, these bigger cells here that produces your surfactant, pulmonary surfactant. So let's say this is a zoomed in structure of your type 2 pneumocyte. Now, it's interesting to note that around the membrane of your type 2 pneumocytes, you have ACE receptors. So these are called ACE receptors. Now, does the body need that? Does the cell need that? Yes, because you need those ACE receptors to produce angiotensin 2, angiotensin 1. In a nutshell, in English, these are needed by your cells to regulate the production of angiotensin, which is responsible for regulating and controlling blood pressure around the body. Okay, so this is your virus, and the spike protein structurally fits into this receptor. So what if it fits? Then it can lock into the receptor. So what? Then it can attach. And now the sad story begins. All right. So attachment of the virus structurally changes this receptor, which changes the structure of another neighboring protein that triggers a complex mechanism wherein your membrane responds by moving. This membrane will move around, and it will embrace, or it will engulf the virus and pull it inward. Notice how the virus didn't do anything. The virus did not enter the cell. The virus just attached to the receptor, and it's our cell that reacts to accommodate it. Like, hey, come here, go inside. Okay, the virus is not alive. It's not doing anything. Okay, so once the virus is now inside your cell, so it's gonna break apart. Okay, and then you remember there's an RNA here, so you have an RNA molecule. So once it breaks apart, the RNA is now exposed. So you have a free-floating RNA in the cytoplasm. Well, around your cytoplasm, you have free ribosomes. So those free ribosomes will recognize that RNA molecule and will start to read this RNA molecule to make, or translate it to make proteins. Okay, so the ribosomes, it's your ribosomes. It's your cell. Your cell will start making use of this RNA to make more proteins. Make more proteins, read it, make more proteins. These same proteins, some of them are enzymes, will then be used to replicate this RNA. Okay, so your RNA was translated by your ribosome to make more proteins. These proteins that you just made will be the same proteins, the same enzymes that will start replicating this RNA to make even more RNA molecules. So at the end of the day, thanks to you, the virus was able to translate more proteins of itself, and these proteins was used to replicate its RNA. So you have a lot of RNAs, you have a lot of viral proteins. All of these will congregate or will accumulate and will start forming bonds with each other to form a very familiar structure of another virus. Okay? Now this virus, because it's coated with different kinds of proteins, the cell thinks that this virus is something that it made, and it's something that your cell needs to release through exocytosis. So it even provides it with a vesicle, envelopes it inside a vesicle, ready to be released through exocytosis. And this virus will now start to go into other neighboring cells and to infect other neighboring cells. Now, here's where the damage starts. When this is released, so imagine like your membrane is now damaged. Okay, so imagine you're releasing hundreds to thousands of these viruses. So you're damaging the membranes. You're damaging the membranes of your pneumocyte, your type 2 pneumocyte. So it's all damaged. Well, when it's damaged, it dies, right? So, damage of your type 2 pneumocytes. Let's use this one. So it dies, releases molecules. Those are signaling molecules that macrophages will interpret as, oh no, this cell needs help. This cell is dying. Okay, so the cells communicate with chemicals. So this dying pneumocyte releases chemicals. The macrophages sees those chemicals and figures out something's wrong with this cell. So it releases even more molecules. I don't want to be technical. These molecules have names. So cytokines, interleukins. Okay, it releases more molecules, inflammatory molecules. And this molecule, the purpose is to call on other white blood cells into this area. Because the macrophage is basically saying, help, help. There's an infection here. A cell is dying, so there might be something that's killing this cell. Help, help, come over here. There's a problem with that. That's good, right? Help, help, come over here. So help, help, come over here. All of these other white blood cells, so you have your natural killer cells, your helper T cells, all different kinds of white blood cells will go here into this infected area. And, well, they were able to go there right away because these molecules actually caused your blood vessels here to dilate. It caused the blood vessels to become more leaky. So more of the blood plasma can be leaking into your alveoli. Well, that's a good thing, right? Because the white blood cells can travel here faster. But remember, I said leaking. There's a leaking of the blood plasma. So you can have blood plasma here and blood plasma here around the cell. Plasma, leaking, those are watery. You don't want your alveoli to be watery. Why not? Well, if it's filled with water, how can it be filled with air? You need your alveoli to expand and collapse to accommodate for gas exchange, gas movement. Now, if this is watery, right, how can you have space there for air? And this is when there's now you start feeling the symptoms, or you start feeling the development of respiratory illnesses. Well, how? So these molecules right here, they could either be any of these three molecules, so cytokines, bradykinins, or prostaglandins. There's many more. Let's just focus on these three molecules. So we already know that release of these molecules calls in more white blood cells in the area, right? And it results into the leaking of your blood plasma from the capillary into the surrounding interstitial fluid here, and then here into the alveoli. These same molecules also reaches the brain. Okay, so this reaches the brain, cytokines reaches the brain, and you have there in your brain, your hypothalamus, if there's high levels of cytokines, it knows that something is wrong. Remember, these are signaling molecules. The brain knows, oh, something is wrong. So it will increase its thermostat. So it will adjust the thermostat, and it can result into fever. So the hypothalamus, the brain, will increase the temperature of the whole body. Actually, that's good, because the brain heard the signal, the cytokines, and it's like, okay, there's an infection, let me increase the temperature, so that like this higher body temperature can potentially kill pathogens. Okay, so that's good. Your body reacts to the cytokines, then you have fever. Now, some of the signaling molecules, or the inflammatory molecules, bradykinin, prostaglandin, especially this bradykinin, this chemical, so it goes now into your blood, it circulates around the body, it reaches the nerve endings here around your throat. So the nerve endings are sensitive to bradykinin. We have chemoreceptors. So they sense this bradykinin, and then they produce the pain sensation or itching sensation. So you feel like so you develop sore throat. There's pain around your throat. The same cytokines also stimulate the nerve endings in your airway. So the nerves around your airway are irritated by this chemical. So you start coughing. It's a dry cough, because really there's no mucus. Your airway is just irritated with this bradykinin. Then prostaglandins, we have associated prostaglandins as a chemical that triggers pain sensation. So you will experience different kinds of body pains, or like weakness. Okay, so this came from this. This results to this. Right? So that's why we're looking for these classic symptoms. You have the symptoms in response to these molecules. You had these molecules because it was released by your white blood cells. Your white blood cells release it because it heard the signal from a dying pneumocyte, and this pneumocyte is dying because of this. Okay, so of course now you're starting to feel the symptoms: fever, sore throat, cough. Those are like mild symptoms, but severe condition of the disease is when this is happening in many of your alveolus, or many in your alveolar sacs. So all of your alveolus are compromised. All of them are watery. All of them have large deposits of white blood cells. So it's harder for you to breathe. So what they do is, in severe cases, they connect the patient to a mechanical ventilator. So it basically helps push the air into the lungs. So you're forcing the air movement into the lungs, because air cannot move anymore. There's no partial pressure to cause the air to move inside your lungs, again, because it's watery. So they connect the body to a mechanical ventilator to force the air to move into the lungs. At least you can still have some gas exchange. Other treatment, so we have here very important antiviral drugs. So doctors around the world have been testing different kinds of antiviral drugs. So we have medicines that can somehow target viruses, from their attachment to their replication to their escape from the host cell. And we have been successful with many antiviral drugs, but we still are not sure on the actual medicine that works. So there's a lot of different kinds of antiviral drugs. I have another video if you want to watch like how antiviral drugs work. But to summarize, some medicines can bind here to the receptor, thereby blocking the possible attachment of this spike protein to the receptor. That's good, right? Or some antiviral drugs work by producing non-standard nucleotides. So yes, your cell made more copies of the RNA, but these RNAs are damaged or non-standard. And then these proteins are also non-standard. So what you have is your cells making damaged viruses. So if the structure is actually damaged, therefore, like it cannot easily damage other host cells, because they cannot easily attach to other cells. These are damaged, broken structure. Or some drugs prevent the release of this virus, so they're just here trapped inside. And if they persist here inside your cytoplasm, then your own lysosomes will start attacking and destroying them. If they're not going to be released, if they're trapped inside, your cell will just destroy these viruses. So prevent the attachment, make damaged RNAs, make damaged proteins, and prevent the exit of your virus. So good. So medical doctors around the world have been testing on all of these available antiviral drugs, checking which one the patient responds to. Okay. Number two, we also give antibiotics because a classic symptom of a person with acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS, or this condition of the lungs, is they have very low white blood cell count. So the problem with a very low white blood cell count, all your white blood cells are busy here, all your white blood cells are also being damaged here, is that bacteria from other parts of the body, you have a lot of bacteria around you, they can easily grow and cause infection. That's why we give antibiotics, because some bacteria will take advantage of your very low white blood cell count, and then they can also produce their own infection. So we give antibiotics. We also give anti-inflammatory drugs, or like paracetamol. Well, we give that because of the fever and the pain. So this has something to do with the production of the prostaglandin, that has something to do with the fever or different kinds of pain that we feel. So yes, we have treatments, but the best treatment that we're waiting for are vaccines. It's possible that we already have vaccines, but conspiracy theory says that they're keeping this so that they can put a premium on the vaccine. The world needs it, they can put a price tag on the vaccine. So how do vaccines work? Probably gonna have another video on that. But just to simplify, your vaccine is a weakened form or an attenuated form of your virus. So you inject the body with a virus, a weak virus, and then your body produces antibodies for it, and it remembers that virus. So next time that you encounter the actual virus, you have a lot of antibodies already in your blood. So even before the virus can infect your type 2 pneumocyte, let's say it's just sticking on the surface, it's just in your airway, okay, your antibodies can already attack them and latch onto them so that they won't be able to latch onto your receptors. Okay, so we're praying for this. Vaccines. And finally, really at the end of the day, if medicine fails us, if science fails us, best antidote. Okay? The prayer. Just because we really don't know how the cellular machinery works. We have medicine, but we don't know how the body will respond to it. We don't know if it can really target the virus. So we commit everything to prayer. Everything else fails. For sure, prayer will not fail. If it will not protect you from the virus, at least it will protect your spirit, your soul, your sanity, and it can make you worry less. And if you're stress-free, you're happy, and if you're happy, your body can fight off this virus on its own, possibly. Okay, so thank you for listening. I hope you kind of learned something from that explanation.